Я на время займу место Алексея, дам ему отдохнуть, но он к нам еще вернется. Меня зовут Тимофей. И, пользуясь этой паузой, я хочу сказать вам пару вещей, повторить пару вещей, которые Алексей говорил в самом начале. У нас есть воркшопы. Один из них начинается вот прямо сейчас по редизайну перекрестков. Уже нету места, опоздали. Простите, да, вот прямо сигнализируют. Тем не менее, все равно рекомендую сходить в соседнюю галерею, прямо здесь. Там можно посмотреть на картины, на выставку обложек журналов «Биограджанка». Да, опять же мне жестикулируют, что мы собираем донаты. Вот посмотрите, красная коробка, она стоит на входе. Можете помочь нам в организации этого и следующего Урбанфеста. Что еще хочу сказать? Левая половина зала не заполнена, тут есть сидячие места. Те, кто стоят, можете воспользоваться передышкой и занять эти места. И первый ряд тоже. Друзья, пользуемся моментом. Из важных вещей, значит, опять же, кофе-поинт, лавка, обязательно тоже ходите, покупайте, все доступно, да. Сделать посвежее. Мы уже этим занимаемся. Так, ну и, наверное, можно уже переходить к нашему следующему спикеру, Екатерина. Да, Екатерина. Выступает Екатерина.
So, I hope everyone can hear me. Hello, everyone. I'm really delighted to see all of you here. And today I will present you some of our work, recent work, which we are currently still working on. And it's about the soft mobility as a lever for neighborhood regeneration. And we will address this issue through the place-based and policy-driven approach. And thank you. So I will ask you to have a look at these pictures and please tell me, do you notice anything which is unusual, or what do you think of these places? If you have any ideas, what do you think of these green places and the neighborhoods around?
I think there may be a place where we can sit or have a rest, because it's a really long distance between different points with it.
Yes. Do you notice anything else about them? Maybe? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. Where do you think they are situated? What kind of neighborhood maybe? Do you have any ideas about it?
Maybe it's hospitals.
Not really, but hospital is somewhere near there. Okay, I will help you. So these places, they exist within two neighborhoods. The one on the left is a neighborhood with the big high-rise buildings with residential towers. And the other one is also the same kind of residential area, but they are very different in the surroundings. So the first place is a big green space within an area, so we can say it's a courtyard. But the problem is that this nice place, it's really green, there are lots of trees, etc., but it lacks the use. So this place is underused, and the right place is also underused, but not because it's not green or something. It's a scary place for people living in this neighborhood. And some people, they also do not understand whether it's a private or a public place. So they don't know how to use this because they do not have the anchors. So this is why we are trying to address these issues. But the other problem is that these two neighborhoods, they are within one community. And as you can see, I specifically have cropped, these pictures, but they are indeed cropped. Both neighborhoods, they lack the connectivity. There is a big issue, and I will talk about this later. So, I will present you a bit our study area, which we are currently working on. And this is a community which is called Ivry-sur-Seine, and it's the southern border of Paris. It's just behind the border of Paris, so which is close. And this neighborhood is currently undergoing the urban regeneration, and lots of new buildings are currently constructed in this. However, these two neighborhoods, I don't know, is it working? The pointer? No, I'm not sure. Okay, I will try to up. Let's go back. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so the two neighborhoods, they have been built for a long time ago. So this is a kind of the 60s, 70s urban area which exists for a long time, and it is also specified by the very huge dispatched areas with high-rise buildings, and there's also a specific type of residents living in it. And historically, the area was designed just for the industrial purposes, while now with Paris expanding a little bit behind the borders, we still need to rebuild, to regenerate these areas for a better use. And so this, where we can now access the issues, and here the municipal command. So we got the command from the municipality. They worked with the residents of the neighborhood, which realized that they cannot walk around this neighborhood. The problem is, if I go back to the slide, that this neighborhood is very well connected with Paris, so people walk north-south, but not east-west and backwards. So the problem was to connect two neighborhoods and also to connect this neighborhood with the cities nearby. This is how we came to the demand of our municipality. And they described us some issues. So the main issue was that there is the lack of connectivity, which was transformed in the fact that people didn't walk east-west. They just didn't like it, and they didn't walk much between two neighborhoods, although they are very connected to each other. And the other problem was that these green spaces that we just watched a couple of minutes ago, they were underused. They are very nice, although people do not understand that it's their public space, that they can use it, and they just neglect the spaces and prefer not using them and not just stay enough much time within them. And so one of city residents just said that we cannot reach these places, for instance, because for some residents it's quite a big distance between them. And then we came to transcribe, like, to decipher the brief that the commander gave us, so which was the east-west connectivity, safety, comfort, fragmented neighborhoods, and these all issues we are going to address through two specific destinations, let's say, which is the placemaking for the specific sites, and then we will try to design or to suggest some change in local policies which can be inspired by the other benchmarks from cities all around the world. And the first approach will be through the soft mobility for the legible, well-connected roads, because people just need better roads within neighborhoods. And we also talk about the shared space, which is nice because Marina just mentioned it before. Yeah, I hope everyone knows already what is shared space. And we will also try to transform it into the evidence-based policy. Okay, so the first thing we needed to do is to understand our neighborhoods, and we ourselves just try to walk within the neighborhood, trying to see the issues. And as you can see, we just created a map of our first field impressions, which was the appreciation, discomfort, surprise, or dislike. I'm really sorry, the map looks disgusting. But as you can see, some places, they are very appreciated, while the others, they provoke the dislike, or they are just uncomfortable, even for us, people not familiar to these places. And then we started to gather some knowledge about these neighborhoods, like how people walk, where they go, to what neighborhoods they also go, and how they walk precisely between these two parts. So that we could just start working on precise spots. And after all of this, we also needed to understand who are our key users for whom we design. So we tried to collect the information through the surveys, through the commented walks from the residents, which described how they walk, what they needed. We also approached the residents randomly in the street to understand if they like their neighborhood, what they dislike. And we also at the same time worked on the routes map just to observe how people walked in the neighborhood. And we also gathered some knowledge about the hard infrastructure to understand whether we can connect the roads with hard infrastructure, because somehow people will still use it. And, oh my God, that's a problem. So 15% of our residents, they estimated that their neighborhood has a completely adapted infrastructure for daily uses, for everything they wanted to do within it, and also especially for elderly people and for people with reduced mobility, including also families with children. But 44%, they just responded that the playgrounds and infrastructure are not really well adapted. This was what we included in our diagnostic, and I'm really sorry, it's awful, but somehow we can already see that only 17% of residents, they prefer using soft mobility to go to work. So this means that mostly people, they are preferring to use public transport or the cars, and while only 23%, they use it for going to the leisure activities, for the recreational activities, which means that there is less than a quarter of all residents in our neighborhood were into soft mobility, for example, for moving around the neighborhood, which also explains the poor connectivity within it. So we also observed that our spaces are parking dominated, which also fragmentates our connectivity and cuts the roads. So it creates a barrier or an obstacle for people who live within the neighborhood. And so, as you can see, for the first neighborhood, the blue parking lots, they are all around the area, and especially they cut through some roads. Oh, yeah, no, please. I need a pointer. Yes. Yeah, just, no. Sorry, it's a real mess. Yeah, okay. And the full screen? Okay. No. Can you please go to the full screen? Yeah, okay. But the pointer is still not there. Okay, doesn't matter. Yeah? Yeah? Is it better? Yeah. Ага. Нет, я...
Указатель.
Окей, все. Слава богу.
Движение вот туда.
Все, отлично. Окей. Yeah, so Так. Yeah. So as you can see, the blue spots, and especially this one, is explaining the fragmentation, because people were trying to go east-west, and this is the barrier on the east-west connection. So we were thinking how we can transform these places precisely into a better connection, into the better places for people. And it's quite a huge surface. Also, for the second neighborhood, which is just within the other area, you can see also that this area is also covered with lots of parkings. And we can also notice that some parkings, they are on street, some others, they are within the courtyards, which also explains that people do not walk within these green areas and within the courtyards because they suppose that it belongs to cars. Okay, this is how we tried to understand why some places are underused, and we specifically selected some sites for our interventions. So the first one was within the Petit-Ivry neighborhood and within this residential site with high-rise buildings. And this area is also the area where there is a huge concentration of people with a very, very modest income. So they cannot probably afford paying their regular bus tickets, or they cannot afford to go in a lot with public transport. Instead, they prefer somehow to walk or to use their own cars for longer distances. And the other thing is also the neighborhood square, which is General de Gaulle. This area was recently redesigned, but somehow it also lacks the green spaces, and as you can see, there are huge green spaces which are underused, but this is symmetry, so we cannot access it very easily. There are walls. While the Montmoussoverolo area, this part, is a part where the green spaces are more dispatched, as you can see, and people do not have that much green area within their neighborhood. So we were trying to understand whether we can include the routes, the connection within the green areas, and trying to connect this with this key street which leads to the city center, which is in this part, and trying to understand whether the connectivity can go within these two areas, but also within the city itself. So the key finding was that we developed our strategic vision through the connectivity and placemaking. So we now going to try to break the fortress effect because people somehow they don't walk inside, and we developed the strategic objectives so that they could be transformed into the policy recommendations for the neighborhood and for the design project for residents. So we were trying to activate these public spaces within the neighborhoods with the placemaking approach, so to create some specific sites within the areas and try to regenerate them for a better use and to invite residents to hang out more within them, and also to address the issue of a better, to help residents to find their ways within this neighborhood, so to use a better navigation. And then also, as I mentioned previously, some spaces, they are really car dominated, so we are trying to reduce this car dominance within the neighborhood and transform it into the shared spaces. Okay, and to make it more reliable, let's say, we were basing our research on the key findings from the Gales Institute criteria, because somehow we needed to have a strong basis. We couldn't just invent some things for the municipality. They needed the basis. And we were selecting these 12 criteria, which are the protection, comfort, and enjoyment. And out of them, we selected 7, which are essential for us. So it's to address the traffic and accidents, to fight against the unpleasant and sensory experience, and also to create new options for mobility, options to stand and linger, so to hang out within the places so that residents, especially younger and elder ones, could stay a bit longer within it, and also to create a better neighborhood connections, and also the options for sitting, playing, and aesthetic qualities. And we could obviously choose to do a strategic plan, which could be a big plan for the whole city, for the whole municipality. But the municipality especially asked us that the solutions that we have to suggest should be low cost, they must include residents, and that they also should be sustainable, and that they could use them within the next mandate, because there will be the end of mandate in the March, and the next mandate should already have enough time to implement the proposed actions. So this is how we suggested this master plan. And our intervention will concentrate on 4 key sites. So the one within the neighborhood, the one within the other neighborhood, this part, which is a part with very fragmented buildings, and also with the connection between the neighborhoods along this street. So we were trying to address the issue of the closed and somehow boundaries neighborhood, to make streets pleasant with community access and with land reclamation, so that people understand this public space belongs to them. And this is the first suggestion. So we were looking at the streets, which is without intervention, and we were suggesting to make a new road through the symmetry. So there is the symmetry in one of the neighborhoods, as you saw before, and the problem was that the people very seldom walked through it, and it was the connection to the other municipality, very popular among residents because there is a lot of commercial areas. So we decided that we suggest to use it as a green corridor and cut a new path through the symmetry, because there is a metro station, the tram line, and the area is nice itself. And it's also very connected with this part, with high-rise building neighborhood. The main difficulty was that, given the mix of departmental roads, this would be very uncomfortable to walk. This is why we suggested that we propose a new path within the symmetry, which doesn't have any roads crossing it. The other solution was to connect the neighborhoods of Ivry, so this is the municipality we're working on, and to connect it with another municipality, which is Vitry, and which is to the north, or which is to the south of Vitry. So we suggested to use green corridors connections, to use already existing green spaces as green corridors. This is a suggested design, and because people always walk to Ivry, to another train station, and also to the metro station, and this area is also very used, but also to create new paths, also east-west, again through the symmetry, because the neighborhood is also characterized by a big presence of symmetries. The third solution was to address the issue of a big avenue, and we proposed to do, again, green corridors with pedestrian network expansion. And this time, we suggested that we create new paths, and we redesign this intersection into a more walkable part, and also with the green corridors connection through this part, and again with the metro stations and trams. So this is how it will look like, the connection through the symmetry over here and over the residential part with a new line, with a new path through the green corridor, and also within another part which will allow also to walk without crossing the borders of the neighborhood, or also without crossing the big roads and intersections. Okay, so based on all this diagnostic, we proposed some place-making solutions, which are exactly the pocket spaces for the key amenities. So we just took the inspirations from the other cities, as many people do, and we proposed to do some outdoor cinemas, soft mobility education park, gathering zone, etc. And our key audience will be elderly people and children. This is why we transformed them into the French policy, because we couldn't just suggest to do so. We needed to find a policy through which we will work. And this is a French institute which proposed the walkability framework, which also relies on accessibility, coherence, safety, and quality. So as you can see, there are 4 angles, and each of them corresponds to specific part of our research. And then we needed to transform it also into a broader policy, which is the Parisian policy. And this is their strategic vision of the development of the city for the upcoming 20 or 10 years, which is the local urban planning document, which is called Plan Local d'Urbanisme, so it's a local urban planning plan. And it already has some orientations with the public spaces, with soft mobility, which is why we tried to include this angle into our research so that we could base the proposals for the policies on already existing documents on the broader regional level. And as you can see, there is already some part about new lines, so new links, and the infrastructures present on the neighborhood. So how do we scale it from the other examples to our neighborhood? So we took some examples of interventions from, exactly for example, from Milano, and we tried to understand how these place-making solutions could be included. So as you can see, there are some, for example, the cycling, the walking. As you can see also, there are some painting on the street, which can be helpful also to reduce car spaces, for example, to address the parking issue. We will just transform it into the shared spaces, into the painting on the floor, etc. And there are some grassroots policies examples, which is, for example, Times Square and Barcelona Superiors, that they have already proven the reduce of the car traffic and the increase of the pedestrian traffic, and also the big decrease of the accidents and for example, the danger of the shared spaces. And this methodology will transform into the tactical urbanism solutions, which will rely on the quicker, light, and cheaper measures, which was asked specifically by the municipality. And the framework will allow us to test these solutions within their term, and whether citizens or the municipality like our proposed interventions, they will become permanent, and by this they can also be included into their policy. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Katerina.
Thank you.
Here is a small session of questions and answers, but first question from me. Your work is more like local, but also you include some city-wide stuff like tram, metro, and so on. So how hard was the process of coordination of these objects, of these administrations, of transport administration, cemetery administration, and so on?
I think that the biggest problem was the symmetries, not the hard infrastructure for the public transport, because the symmetry, they cannot be opened, and some of them, they are just working on specific hours, because in the evening they just close the doors, and people still were using them just to go through. There were some cuts, because people didn't like to walk along the street, they preferred to cut through the symmetry, but the problem was that since the symmetry is closed in the evening, so there is no soft mobility within it, people cannot walk, and we need to just to find the ways that the municipality, or especially that these symmetries, they belong to Paris, they don't belong to the municipality of Ivry. We needed to find a way that Paris municipality accepts that these symmetries will be opened. We're still working on it, it's a bigger process, but we already asked the municipality of Ivry that they work with Paris on opening up these spaces for a permanent use, so opening and reducing the gates.
How long was the process?
Well, I will say that we're already working on this project for like 4 months, but we are on a very preliminary stage, because after us there will be a new agency within the neighborhood that will also continue with our diagnostic, with our proposed solutions.
Okay, looks bearable.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for the presentation. I would like to ask, you said you will test your decisions, and I want to ask how will you test it, and what will you measure, and so on?
Well, we're first trying to test this suggestions with the municipality, because still nothing is built, nothing is on the ground, but we are trying to convince the municipality that these solutions could benefit for the neighborhood, to increase the social connections also, and to increase the lines and between the neighborhood. And the main problem, as I mentioned at the very beginning, that people just didn't want to stay long enough within these areas because it was just unpleasant. And while doing these suggestions, we will just try to convince the municipality that people will want to stay longer. Yes.
Thanks for this engaging story. I was wondering, according to your experience with this project, how long it takes usually to implement all these stages from research stage to the final results, usually?
Well, I would say that since France is very long in all processes, it can take up to 2 years. We were mostly relying on some diagnostic that was done before, and also some research is done before us. But in my experience, or what I saw in France, it can take up to 5 years to implement this. But these solutions can be done within, I think, 2 years. Yeah.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Quick question. Did you arrange any discussions with the local residents after the project concept was developed? And if yes, what was the feedback? Did you change anything in the project based on what you've heard from the local residents?
Well, we were mostly talking with local residents to do the diagnostic, but we also asked them whether they need this interventions, what they think about them, what is their likes or dislikes, what they prefer. So we will still continue working on it, just to improve what we have already suggested on the diagnostic step. Yeah. For now on, the project is still not finished.
Okay, it was the last question. You can catch Екатерina in our backstage. I don't know, in this perfect venture. Thank you.
Thank you.